Hey, what is up, spiritual hooligan? Are you burdened by the feeling like you're not as good as other people, or you're less than, or you can't really be as bold as you want to be? You don't want to offend people or cause people to have a reaction to you. Maybe you feel like you kind of need to hide and lay low. Well, that is a hidden motive to survive called humble. And today I've got some notes for you. I want to help you to be bold. Stop being so humble. I'm going to give you 4 empowering practices to overcome this hidden motive to survive, so that you can start to experience more of the joy and the peace and the exuberance of being alive. My name is Matthew Ferry, and I'm bringing you your daily enlightenment. Today it is from New York's Central Park. It's a gloomy, overcast day. I've found a little spot here next to a rock with a bench, and I am shooting for you. This is our moment to pause, to slow down, to get connected to enlightened perspectives. I want to help you to quiet your mind and restore your peace, even in the middle of the insanity of New York City. Humble. Humble is a hidden motive to survive. There are 10 hidden motives to survive, and in my quest to assist my mind in going completely silent, and that's really what I was doing. I was assisting my mind as if it is a mechanism, just like you would assist your muscles in getting stronger. Your mind is a biological mechanism, and it's driven by an aspect of consciousness, or many aspects in this particular case. And the underlying motivation to think, when removed, causes the survival mind to quiet down, and then this intuitive, more expansive version of the mind to become available to you. And that's part of our goal today. So I wrote down a couple things about humble, which is one of these hidden motives. You got greed, grudge, hatred, victim, illogical rules, humble, traitor, pride, resistance, hatred, right? All grudges, all of these things actually drive us from a survival perspective. And humble is having or showing a modest or low estimates of oneself, making yourself less important than God, less important than the universe, less important than your family members, less important than your boss, less important than your spouse or your kids. This is really disabling to moms who put their children's needs above their own, and then they actually debilitate themselves. It's an aspect of being humble. We lower our value to make others feel more secure around us. And that's really an important thing to begin to notice about humble, is that humble is actually a pretty high conscious version of a survival tactic. Like pride. Pride is also a very high conscious version of a survival tactic. And if you think about it, it is an aspect of making sure that you're able to maintain harmony in the tribe, because there's, in every tribe or every group, there's going to be an alpha. And for millennia, that alpha was an extremely low conscious being, and the idea of you being powerful was actually a threat. So in order to get along and be symbiotic in the tribe, one of the aspects of consciousness that developed over time was this idea of making yourself lower, so that that one person can be in charge, and then we can work together as a group. And while that is a terrific idea, and I certainly recommend that you look for the appropriate way to fit into all the groups that you are a part of, that's just being symbiotic and holistic in your approach. But to actually connect with the idea that you're lower and that you can't is not a choice. That's not you making a choice. It's actually you being inspired by a part of consciousness that diminishes you. So it's more effective, like for example, around my father. My father is very much an alpha, and I'm an alpha in my own family, and you might be an alpha, you might be a beta, you might be in charge, you might be the boss, whatever. But there are situations where that's not the case, where there are other people who do have more status, or it's appropriate to honor them as being in charge. And that is a very high conscious choice to make. distinct from making yourself lower and thinking you can't and thinking you're not good enough, or that you don't have as much value, or what you say doesn't have as much power or opinion. So I've got 4 empowering practices that I want to share with you. The goal here is to be bold and to stop being so humble, okay? So these are 4 things that one of my students sent over to me, and I thought I'm going to do a series on what this is. Ty sent over a thing saying, Matthew, here's what I'm doing right now to help remind me to get through the hidden motives. And so in this series of daily enlightenments, I'm going to be using Ty's notes as my inspiration to help you overcome the hidden motives, or transcend them, or heal them, or correct the imbalances, whatever you want to say. So the first one is to be bold, and to be intentional about being bold. That's not an easy thing to do. Be intentional about being bold. Really push yourself to test the boundaries, to experiment with how far can you actually go. The truth is, you don't actually know. When you are moving forward into the future, you're moving forward into darkness, into the unknown. And all there is to do is to experiment and to recognize that it's an experiment. The other thing to overcome your humbleness, practice number 2, is to ask for help. Where could you be asking for more help? Who are some of the experts that you could go to and say, I need your help, I'm trying to do this thing, where your humbleness goes like, oh, they won't help me, I'm too lowly, blah, blah, blah. Push yourself, intentionally ask for help. Number 3 is to celebrate failures, setbacks, and misfires as learning. Will you begin the process of celebrating failure rather than going, see, it proves I am lowly, I am nothing, I don't matter, I'm not as important. Instead, you practice celebrating the failure as learning. And then 4 is to learn how to cancel promises and visions with grace and no shame. And what Ty was getting to when he put this practice down is this idea that we talk about in the rapid enlightenment process of not being tied to guilt and shame and obligation. And oftentimes when you are making yourself humble, what you're doing is you're actually surrendering your own wants and needs to other people's wants and needs, because your mind is saying, or the inspiration behind your mind, that's the key, by the way, the inspiration behind your mind is saying, you're not as important as everybody else, so you better do their objectives. So one of the things you want to practice doing is learning how to cancel these promises and visions and commitments with grace, and not necessarily being destructive. So my question to you today is, which one of these are you going to put into place? Are you going to practice being bold today, asking for help, celebrating your failures and setbacks as learning? Or are you going to practice canceling the things you've signed up for, the things you have agreed to do out of making yourself lower with grace? Will you leave me a comment below? I really want to hear from you. My name is Matthew Ferry, author of Quiet Mind, Epic Life. And look, you watched or listened to this Daily Enlightenment all the way through. Will you like it? Because if you like it, that tells these big platforms, hey, this is something worth spreading. Will you share it with your other fellow spiritual hooligans? Let them know what we're talking about over here. I bet there's some people in your life who would really benefit from it. And of course, leave me a comment. I love to communicate with my fellow spiritual hooligans out there in the world. Now, you can subscribe to my channel. I put out a new Daily Enlightenment every day. You can also come over to the Spiritual Hooligans Facebook group. We're all having conversations like this, coaching and helping and supporting each other over there. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Daily Enlightenment.